using that HD app. Kind of like it, actually. It's a cool way to record your rides and stuff. It's nice. Plus, I dig the challenges and stuff. Maybe win a free bike. Boy, wouldn't that be something. I think we're gonna go this way. I don't want to be stuck in all this traffic.
That's the sound of the police.
You guys have seen that video, right? That's a car that pulls up behind the cop, rev bombs, and it's like, "Shut up, idiot!"
Shut up, idiot.
Oh! It's good stuff. Anyway, what is up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today we are just cruising around. No real point or purpose other than to talk to you guys about the things that I don't like about the Lowrider S. Now, why would I make such a video? This is the greatest bike ever. Well, no bike is perfect, and this one is no exception. It definitely has some things about it that I wish were different. Right now, I've gotten this bike to a point where, man, there's not a whole lot I can complain about with it, but I felt like I should touch on this video a little bit just because I wanted to talk about it more from the perspective of when this bike was stock and the things that I wanted to change right away to make it more ideal, and the things that I still have in mind that aren't quite there yet that I'm definitely going to keep working on. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so let's call this the top 5 things that I do not like about the Lowrider S. And we're going to say top 5 things I don't like about the stock Lowrider S. So, number 1, and I feel like this is going to be the top of pretty much everyone's list that you ask about this bike, the sound. I know that Harley is completely up against it with the EVA, and they got to do all this stuff for emissions and all this other kind of crap, but you get it from the factory, and it sounds okay, but the first thing you gotta do is at least do a stage 1. That's just a given. You gotta get a better exhaust on it, and whether you do full system or some slip-ons, that's up to you, but that's something that you guys should definitely do. If you're thinking about getting this bike, look at it as basically a down payment on a stage 1, essentially, because that's going to be, in my opinion, an absolute necessity. I went stage 2, as you guys that have been following the channel already know. I'll throw a link in the description to my review on the stage 2 kit that I went with from Harley Davidson, trying to stick within warranty. But yeah, man, that's the first thing you got to switch up. So, number 2, the foot controls. Now, the foot controls aren't terrible. My honest opinion of this is you can get away with them, but I changed out for some mini floorboards, and it's been a night and day difference. I'm shorter. I'm on the shorter side, I should say. So I actually really like the mid controls. I would never do forwards on this bike. It doesn't make sense to me. If you're a taller guy, you're worried about that, I'd say get a Sport Glide. But as far as the actual pegs themselves are concerned, first of all, they don't look great. But the bigger thing to me is they don't perform as well as these ones that I have on here right now. I have San Diego Customs mini floorboards on mine. They're a little bit bigger than some of the gripper pegs that I see some of these guys going with, like the MX style peg. You could get away with something smaller, something sportier if you want, but I wanted this to be kind of like a nice hybrid between, cruising, feeling comfortable, and then performance. And these things, they still perform. They perform great, but it's definitely nice to have some room to wiggle your feet around if you need to. And then on top of that, I feel really a lot more planted on the pegs, and I feel like I even have more control than I did with the regular peg setup. So that's the next thing that I would say about that. Number 3, and honestly, I would probably move this one to number 2, is the seat. it's kind of one of those things that you don't really notice until you change it. You know, I mean, I felt like shorter rides, it was fine, but that being said, it's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know what you have or don't have until you have the new thing. And my new seat, man, whew, it blows the stock seat out of the water, and I feel like pretty much any aftermarket seat that you can find will do that. A lot of the better seats from Harley Davidson will probably even do that. But that's definitely another thing that you're going to have to probably look into as far as things to change on this bike. So that brings me to number 4. Now this one is definitely more subjective, depending on how you want to make it your own, I guess, and how you want it to feel. Number 4 is the handlebars, the bar placement. I feel like out of the factory, they're in a spot that, like, they're kind of going for that club style, riser look, but just, they should have been taller. If you want to really make it a club style bike, I feel like out of the factory, you got to give a little bit more rise. I mean, even me as a shorter guy, I was still feeling like I was kind of like hunching over, leaning for those things. So I can't even imagine how someone that was taller would feel. So I feel like out of the factory, the risers should have been a little bit higher. I think it goes better with that, that club style look that they were going for. Obviously, this is supposed to be a club style bike. That's the way that I think it was meant to be. And I feel like they could have given us a little bit more out of the factory on that. I think they could have kind of taken it a step further, and it probably would have drawn more people in, because you look at that and you say, okay, well, I might not even have to put new risers on or new bars or extend the cables or anything. That's one extra bit and piece that you feel like you have already taken care of on your bike and you don't have to deal with again. So I feel like that's something that they definitely could have done a little bit of a better job on from the factory. I guess, like I said, it's subjective. Maybe you want that more like sporty, lean forward feel to it, so maybe you like having the bars lower. I don't know, you guys, if you have this bike or if you've seen one in person, let me know what you think. Like, do you like it like that, or do you agree with me that the bars should have been higher from the factory? Before we get into the last one, I would say an honorable mention for me is the lean angle on this bike. I know it's the low rider S, so this comes as kind of an oxymoron, but I would say that I would love a little bit of a taller shock on it. That was one thing that I would change up, but that is going to be sneak preview. That's going to be one of the next upgrades that I do on this bike. I've been holding off on it for a while, and I'm really excited to actually get to it and get to put on a taller shock that's going to perform a little bit better. That one's more of an honorable mention for me, because I know not everyone is using this as like a total performance cruiser, so they're probably going to be okay with the stock height and honestly the stock feel of the suspension. The new Softails, I feel like, are way more comfortable than even the old ones or the Dynas or anything like that. So a lot of people I know will be happy with it stock, but I felt like I should mention that just as a my personal feeling on it. And then number 5, finally, is the internals of this engine, man. I mean, it kind of goes back to that first one that we talked about a little bit with the sound. You need to get an aftermarket exhaust on it, but it's crazy to me the difference between this engine from the factory and after you wake it up with a tune. The reason I say that is just because, like, I thought it was plenty. When I first started riding this thing out of the factory, I thought that it was fine. I was like, why would you need more than this? This is, well, out of a stock bike, I should say. Why should you need more than this? But I was having a blast with it, and then I got it tuned with the Stage 2, and even with just an HD cam, guys, oh my god, it is a night and day difference. If you have any of the bikes with a 114 on it and you still haven't upgraded to getting a tune on it or getting, some kind of remapping or Stage 1 at least, if not Stage 2 or bigger, I highly recommend doing it because it absolutely changes the bike. You know, it's it's so much better. And that's coming from it's not like bad stock. The 114 is by no means is it bad stock. It's just after you do that, it's an absolute game changer. So I would say that that's one to definitely look into. If you're into that kind of thing, then, you know, which I think most guys probably are, I would say go for it. So that's my kind of top 5 as to the things that you should look to change right away on the Lowrider S. This thing, when I'm done with it, it's gonna rip. So stay tuned for more upgrades. I hope you guys enjoyed the list. You know, I tried not to be too clickbaity with the title, but I feel like there are definitely some things with this bike. Even though it's such a great bike out of the factory stock, I think it's arguably one of the best bikes that Harley-Davidson has ever made. There are definitely a couple things that you should look to change up and you should look to upgrade. So that's not a bad thing. I think that upgrading your bike is honestly half the fun of owning it. You know, I mean, make it your own and make it different than anyone else's. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me today. If you liked this video, as always, hit the like button, subscribe, drop a comment, all of that good stuff. Really helps me out, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.